Welcome back, everybody. Nice to chat with you again. This video is being recorded on Tuesday, January 27th, a little bit later than I like to, but I spent much of last night reading everyone's initial draft, making some comments, and then I scanned those responses and sent them back to everybody by email. If you haven't seen yours yet, make sure you check your email box. I sent a few of them from my MetLife address and a few of them from my Ivy Tech address, so it could come from either. But take a look at those. The purpose of writing that is because it was your first writing assignment for this class, and I wanted to give everyone some feedback. I tried to be balanced in that I offered some criticism if I saw something that was lacking, but I also tried to give everyone some praise if I thought there was something that was done particularly well. And there was a lot that was done well. I hope you find that helpful when you're writing your final assignment. Take my comments into consideration. If you agree with me, then you can make the changes. If you disagree with me, well, it's your essay, you own it, and you can do what you'd like. A couple things that were consistent that I want to point out in the drafts that I saw. My computer's moving slow today. Sorry about that. Let's take a look at the essay that was written by Mike Adams. Mike did a great job. Here's Mike's writing project. Told you this was slow. Notice Mike's setup on the page. First of all, he has his last name and the page number in the upper right-hand corner. That's exactly right. His name, then my name, then the class name. Yeah, there are some other digits that go after English 111. Those aren't necessary. Simply English 111 is sufficient. Before my name, you don't have to put Mr. or anything like that. I know some of you were trying to be very polite, and while I appreciate that, it's not necessary. Simply just list my name. And Mike also got the date exactly right. In MLA, the date format is always the day, then the month, then the year. Now, we're Americans. We don't go around saying 25 January. We say January 25th. But in MLA, this is the format that you have to use. The assignment was due on the 25th, which is exactly the date that Mike used. You always put the date that the assignment is due. Not the assignment, the date it was written, and not the date that the final version will be due, but the date that the draft was due. So this was well done. In every writing project that you do for this class, this is the format you're going to follow every single time. Always your name and the page number, and then this information. That was set up well. Let's take a look at another essay. If we can ever get there. Let's take a look at the one written by Shauna. What I'd like to point out in Shauna's essay is that she includes the title of the article she was reading, How I Bluffed My Way Through College, and she puts it in quotes. In MLA format, when you're referring to a title, it appears in quotes. Notice that she also includes the author's first and last name the first time she mentions it. In later sentences, when she's referring to the author, she only uses their last name, which is exactly right. So the first time you refer to a person, first and last name, but in subsequent mentions, just last name. Also notice that this article, How I Bluffed My Way Through College, appeared in a journal, the online magazine Salon. And again, Sean has done this correctly. Journal titles are always italicized. Book titles too. One other thing on Shauna's article, and this is a mistake that I made. I'm not a perfect person, just ask the people I live with, and I do make mistakes. Shauna included in here a situational analysis. Not everyone included this, and that is my fault because my instructions the last time were not completely clear. In fact, I even had a conversation with a student about the situation analysis, and well, it's my fault again. I didn't answer the question exactly right. If you did a situational analysis, and many of you did, good for you. If you didn't, I don't think it's fair that I ask you to go back and do one now. So for the final draft, the final version that you'll be turning in once you revise your draft, you don't have to include this because that was my mistake. Let's take a look at what we're going to be doing for session 3. Good news is session 3's a little lighter than session 2 was. I know there was a lot in session 2. We still have some work to do, but the volume is a little lower. For session 3, of course, there's an overview, which I know you'll read, a list of learning objectives and content, and then our learning activities. You're going to read one chapter in the textbook, and that's chapter 24, Citing Sources in MLA Style. There are 2 chapters listed here. Chapter 25, don't read this. We're not using APA in this class. APA is a fine format. I've written essays in my own classes in APA format, but for English 111, we're only using MLA. So why read both? Just read chapter 24. And later, when you're taking the quiz on MLA style, have the book with you. You can refer back to it. There's a PowerPoint on critical rereading. You're going to review the core reading essay that you wrote about. There's a PowerPoint on principles of peer response, and there's 2 supplemental videos on peer response and MLA practice. If you think you've got a firm handle on these, well, it's your option if you want to watch them or not, because they are supplemental. I think it's a good idea, but it's your call. And there are 3 assignments: critical rereading, peer review of writing project 1, we'll talk about this more in just a minute, and then the MLA exercise. Again, don't do the APA exercise. You don't need it. Let's take a look at the learning activities. Again, only chapter 24, not chapter 25. And there's a PowerPoint on critical rereading. And this is referring to rereading the article that you wrote about. The download will open, and again, hit F5 when it does to make it full screen. And you simply use your spacebar to page through, and your backspace if you want to go back a page. There are a variety of questions to keep in mind as you're reading. Some of the more important questions are on this screen. What's the author's main point? How does the author back up his or her points? Is the presentation effective? Is there something that the author missed? What's confusing? And this one's always interesting. What's eye-opening about it? What did you really come away from this with an understanding of that you may not have had previously? Once you've finished that, go to the core reading, find the article you read. I hope you remember where it is. I would be bad at these things. I'd have to look through every folder to find the one I wrote about, and read it again. Hope you picked a short one. Now, do I suspect you're going to read this in depth, in detail, or will you be reading it with an eye towards the questions that you saw in the PowerPoint? Probably the latter. Once you've finished those two activities, you're ready to go to the discussion board. And here is the discussion board for critical rereading. As of today, Tuesday, no one's been in this discussion board yet, but everyone will be soon. There are 8 questions listed. You don't have to address all 8. The assignment asks you to pick 4. Pick the 4 that interest you most. For example, number 4, what's the main point of the core reading? Well, you've just written an article, or excuse me, a draft about this. I bet you could do that one rather quickly. And it asks you to summarize in 2 to 3 sentences using your own words, what's the main point? What does the author want us to take away? Again, there are 8 questions here. Pick any of the 4, and you're going to write about 200 words. So, 3 paragraphs. Once yours is posted, and other folks in the class have posted theirs as well, you're going to read the forum posts, the discussion posts of 2 other classmates and give them a response to what they summarized. And here are the instructions on what you're going to be doing. So your own forum post with the critical rereading of the article you chose is about 200 words. You're going to read 2 classmates' posts and give them some response of your own based on this in about 100 words. Again, you need to do 2, so you'll have around 200 words total. Maybe more, but 100 is a minimum. Let's go back to class sessions. And session 3, of course. And see what else is there under assignments and assessments. That's the critical rereading we just talked about. And here is peer response. This is in response to the drafts that everyone wrote for writing project 1. Again, there are 5 examples of what you can address. You don't have to address all of them. It asks you to pick 4 of the 5. If you're very detailed, you might be able to do it in 3. The point is to give them feedback on what they wrote in their draft. For example, let's look at D. Analyze the writing style used in the draft. Is the writing clear and readable? You're not being asked to proofread for your fellow students. They'll take care of that themselves when they finalize it. You don't need to point out typos or awkward sentences. Think of the big picture. Are there passages that could be better said? Does the writer's voice come through clearly and effectively? Does the organization of the draft make sense? Does it have a clear introduction? Does it have a conclusion? Does the introduction tie to the main idea? Those are the things you should concern yourself with. You're going to respond to 2. Take a look at the discussion board. If you see someone that doesn't have any feedback, go ahead and jump on that one. If someone has 4 responses already, well, then you should skip ahead and go to somebody else that needs feedback as well. You're going to hit reply, and I'll show you this in just a minute. Answer 4 of the 5 questions in about 200 words. In fact, in the discussion board right now, there's an example of this, which is well done. So let's take a look. Oh, I went too far. So we're in the Writing Project 1 response. And we're going to look at Mike's essay again. Mike is going to start to think that I have some sort of obsession because I'm using him as an example over and over again. Here is Mike's writing project, and notice Heidi has already put in a response, and I think this is well done. She lettered the responses she was giving, A, B, C, and D, and wrote a few words about each of them. Notice Heidi is also being positive and negative, which is something I like to see. If someone does something well, point it out. If, as Heidi says here, your writing has a clear introduction and conclusion, great. And she also points out, the writing is accurate and clear, however I don't get a sense of your writing, only the author of the core reading. So when Mike is finalizing his writing project, he knows he needs to pay attention to that. The whole point of this is to make you a better writer. None of us, and I mean none of us, is very good at analyzing our own writing. Me in particular, I am not very good at evaluating something I've written because we tend to write the way we think, and we have to a small degree blinders on. When I do a writing project for one of my classes, the first thing I do is I give it to someone else, someone I'm not related to and someone that doesn't know me closely, so they really have a clear set of eyes and they're objective. So again, you're going to go to the discussion board, writing project 1, read an essay or 2, and then respond. Oh, I may have missed this. Under learning activities, in fact, I know I did, there's a PowerPoint on the principles of peer response. Let's take a look at that quickly. Notice there's a transcript as well. I think simply the PowerPoint is better. And this will give you some guidelines on how to provide someone feedback on something they've written. Notice on this slide it says, what if I say something that upsets a classmate about his or her writing, or what if I give it bad advice? Well, the solution for that is to be objective, be honest, be tactful. If someone's made a mistake, you don't need to point out the mistake specifically. What you might want to say is, I think you could say this better, or this is a little unclear. And of course, if something is done well, give them praise. Back to assignments and assessments. Here's your critical rereading, which we've already discussed, your peer response, and then an MLA exercise. I'm not going to launch this now. You'll do that later. When you do this, have chapter 24 out. This is not a test. It's an exercise. And if you need to refer back to the book to be able to answer the questions correctly, then by all means, do it. And that appears to be it for assignments and assessments for session 3. Again, anytime you want to check your progress in the course, you can always go to the Grades tab. Everyone's grades are up to date as of Tuesday, the 27th. If you completed the writing draft, I gave you the points for it. I didn't grade the drafts on whether they were well done or not, whether they had mistakes in them or not. It was simply, did you complete the assignment? I will give you grades on your writing project once the final version is turned in. We'll review one more time. Session overview, learning objectives, learning activities. Again, chapter 24, not chapter 25. A PowerPoint on critical rereading, then reread the article you selected. View the very short PowerPoint on the principles of peer response. Although this is a pretty polite group, I know no one's going to be hating on anyone. There are 2 supplemental video resources if you think you need them. Excuse me, 1 video and 1 practice activity. And then you're going to complete these assignments and assessments. Critical rereading, the instructions we discussed. A peer response for the writing project. And then the MLA exercise. Again, as always, if you need to reach out to me, email address is mstenger and the number 1 at Ivy Tech, or mstenger at MetLife. My text number is 812-498-4200. My telephone number is 800-416-1747. That's a free call. And I'm also trying to stay on Blackboard Instant Messenger as much as possible. I had a number of discussions with folks in the class on Sunday night before the draft was due, and I think that was a good exercise. Again, my apologies for the situational analysis. I did not handle that well. I'll try to get it right for the next time. Have a good week, everybody. On behalf of myself, Mark, and to the students in Mike Cooney's class, have a great week. If you need me, reach out to me. Thanks, everybody.